Genesis chapter 41. Pharaoh's dream. After a lapse of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile when up out of the Nile came 7 cows. Fine looking and fat, they grazed in the reed grass. Behind them, 7 other cows, poor looking and gaunt, came up out of the Nile, and standing on the bank of the Nile beside the others, the poor looking gaunt cows devoured the 7 fine looking fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had another dream. He saw 7 ears of grain, fat and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 fat, healthy ears. Then Pharaoh woke up. It was a dream. Next morning his mind was agitated, so Pharaoh had all the magicians and sages of Egypt summoned and recounted his dream to them. But there was no one to interpret it for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Now I remember my negligence. Once when Pharaoh was angry with his servants, he put me and the chief baker in custody in the house of the chief steward. Later we both had dreams on the same night, and each of our dreams had its own meaning. There was a Hebrew youth with us, a slave of the chief steward, and when we told him our dreams, he interpreted them for us and explained for each of us the meaning of his dream. Things turned out just as he had told us. I was restored to my post, but the other man was impaled. Pharaoh therefore had Joseph summoned, and they hurriedly brought him from the dungeon. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he came to Pharaoh. Pharaoh then said to Joseph, "I had a dream, but there was no one to interpret it. But I hear it said of you, if he hears a dream, he can interpret it." "It is not I," Joseph replied to the Pharaoh, "but God who will respond for the well-being of Pharaoh." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when up from the Nile came 7 cows. Fat and well-formed, they grazed in the reed grass. Behind them came 7 other cows, scrawny, most ill-formed and gaunt. Never have I ever seen such bad specimens as these in all the land of Egypt. The gaunt bad cows devoured the first 7 fat cows, but when they had consumed them, no one could tell that they had done so, because they looked as bad as before. Then I woke up. In another dream I saw 7 ears of grain, full and healthy, growing on a single stalk. Behind them sprouted 7 ears of grain, shriveled and thin and scorched by the east wind. And the 7 thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy ears. I have spoken to the magicians, but there is no one to explain it to me." Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams have the same meaning. God has made known to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows are 7 years, and the 7 healthy ears are 7 years, the same in each dream. The 7 thin bad cows that came up after them are 7 years, as are the 7 thin ears scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. Things are just as I told Pharaoh. God had revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are now coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will rise up after them. When all the abundance will be forgotten in the land of Egypt, when the famine has exhausted the land, no trace of the abundance will be found in the land because of the famine that follows it, for it will be very severe. That Pharaoh had the same dream twice means that the matter has been confirmed by God, and that God will soon bring it about. Therefore let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh act and appoint overseers for the land to organize it during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these coming good years, gathering the grain under Pharaoh's authority for food in the cities, and they should guard it. This food will serve as a reserve for the country against the 7 years of famine that will occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish in the famine." This advice pleased Pharaoh and all his servants. "Could we find another like him?" Pharaoh asked his servants, "A man so endowed with the Spirit of God." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one as discerning and wise as you are. You shall be in charge of my household, and all my people will obey your command. Only in respect to the throne will I outrank you." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Look, I put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." With that, Pharaoh took off his signet ring and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes and fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He then had him ride in his second chariot, and they shouted "Abrek" before him. Thus was Joseph installed over the whole land of Egypt. "I'm Pharaoh," he told Joseph, "but without your approval no one shall lift hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh also bestowed the name of Zaphenath-Paneah on Joseph, and he gave him in marriage Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of Heliopolis. And Joseph went out over the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. After Joseph left Pharaoh, he went throughout the land of Egypt during the 7 years of plenty, when the land produced abundant crops. He collected all the food of these years of plenty that the land of Egypt was enjoying and stored it in the cities, placing in each city the crops of the fields around it. Joseph collected the grain like the sands of the sea, so much that at last he stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. Before the famine years set in, Joseph became the father of 2 sons, born to him by Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of Heliopolis. Joseph named his firstborn Manasseh, meaning God has made me forget entirely my troubles in my father's house. And the second he named Ephraim, meaning God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. When the 7 years of abundance enjoyed by the land of Egypt came to an end, the 7 years of famine set in. Joseph had said, although there was famine in all the other countries, food was available throughout the land of Egypt. When all the land of Egypt became hungry and the people cried to Pharaoh for food, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." When the famine had spread throughout the land, Joseph opened all the cities that had grain and rationed it to the Egyptians. Since the famine had gripped the land of Egypt, indeed the whole world came to Egypt to Joseph to buy grain. The famine had gripped the whole world. Genesis chapter 42. The brothers' first journey to Egypt. When Jacob learned that grain rations were for sale in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at one another?" He went on, "I hear that grain is for sale in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, that we may stay alive and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought that some disaster might befall him. And so the sons of Israel were among those who came to buy grain, since there was famine in the land of Canaan. Joseph, as governor of the country, was the one who sold grain to all the people of the land. When Joseph's brothers came out, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. He recognized them as soon as he saw them, but he concealed his own identity from them and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked them. They answered, "From the land of Canaan, to buy food." When Joseph recognized his brothers, although they did not recognize him, he was reminded of the dreams he had about them. He said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the weak points of the land." "No, my lord," they replied. "On the contrary, your servants have come to buy food. All of us are sons of the same man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." But he answered them, "No, not so. It is the weak points of the land that you have come to see. We, your servants," they said, "are 12 brothers, sons of a certain man in Canaan, but the youngest one is at present with our father, and the other one is no more." "It is just as I said," Joseph persisted. "You are spies. This is how you shall be tested. I swear by the life of Pharaoh that you shall not leave here unless your youngest brother comes here. So send one of your number to get your brother, while the rest of you stay here under arrest. Thus will your words be tested by their truth. If they are untrue, as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." With that, he locked them up in the guardhouse for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "Do this, and you shall live, for I am a God-fearing man. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in this prison, while the rest of you go and take grain for your starving families. But you must bring me your youngest brother. Your words will thus be verified, and you will not die." To this they agreed. To one another, however, they said, "Truly we are being punished because of our brother. We saw the anguish of his heart when he pleaded with us, yet we would not listen. This is why the anguish has now come upon us." Then Reuben responded, "Did I not tell you, do no wrong to this boy? But you would not listen. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." They did not know, of course, that Joseph understood what they said, since he spoke with them through an interpreter. But turning away from them, he wept. When he was able to speak to them again, he took Simeon from among them and bound him before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to have their containers filled with grain, their money replaced in each one's sack, and provisions given them for their journey. After this had been done for them, they loaded their donkeys with the grain and departed. At the night encampment, when one of them opened his bag to give the donkey some fodder, he saw his money there in the mouth of his bag. He cried out to his brothers, "My money has been returned. Here it is in my bag." At that their hearts sank. Trembling, they asked one another, "What is this that God has done to us?" When they got back to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. The man who is Lord of the land, they said, spoke to us harshly and put us in custody on the grounds that we were spying on the land. But we said to him, we are honest men. We have never been spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of the same father. But one is no more, and the youngest one is now with our father in the land of Canaan. Then the man who is Lord of the land said to us, this is how I will know if you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me, then take grain for your starving families and go. When you bring me your youngest brother, and I know that you are not spies, but honest men, I will restore your brother to you, and you may move about freely in their land. When they were emptying their sacks there, in each one's sack was his money bag. At the sight of their money bags, they and their father were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, must you make me childless? Joseph is no more. Simeon is no more. And now you would take Benjamin away? All these things have happened to me. Then Reuben told his father, you may kill my own 2 sons if I do not return him to you. Put him in my care, and I will bring him back to you. But Jacob replied, my son shall not go down with you, now that his brother is dead. He is the only one left. If some disaster should befall him on the journey you would send my white head down to Sheol in grief. God bless.